All right, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Business Events with the Power Platform. My name is Kuldeep Singh, and I'll be your host today for this today's tightly scheduled webinar for 45 minutes. So we'll be discussing what Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation Business Events are and how can we collaborate with them using Power Platform down the line. So I welcome you on board, all who are joining us from all the streaming media channels, Zoom meeting, Teams invite, and multiple live streaming channels we are offering this webinar to. So without any further ado, let's get started with this exciting series of webinars in here. So having said that, what we would be covering as part of today's webinar, let's have a quick agenda what we'll be discussing. So we'll be having a quick overview of Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations business events, what they are, where can we find them, and of course some of the top level concepts we'll be discussing along with them, followed by a quick hands-on, a quick demonstration talking about business events and their integration to Microsoft Power Platform. And we'll be having some Q&As thereafter talking about multiple options down the line. So let's get started with our today's webinar. Welcome you all once again, and when we talk about Microsoft Dynamics 365 business events, let's understand what business events are. They are pretty much a mechanism, can be accessible over mobile apps as well, can be accessible over the web, can be accessible through any clients over there. The important thing is the business events will provide a mechanism that lets external systems receive notification from finance and operation applications. Without going to in-depth definition kind of things over there, let's quickly understand what exactly does that mean, the statement. So ideally, a business event for any business application is that any kind of business event when it actually occurs. For example, when you are posting a purchase order, a business event actually occurs. When you are posting a free text invoice, a business event actually occurs. When you are confirming a sales quotation, or when you are picking up a sales order. So all these kind of critical examples, whether they belongs to financials, whether they belongs to procurement and sourcing, whether they belongs to sales and marketing or HR or even system administration, we can categorize them across business events categories, but business events are actually when you would like to integrate them to the external systems. By this way, the system can perform business actions in response to the business event. For example, if something happens, I want something else to happen, and that too in my external system. Having said that, if we are having our finance and operations running up and a business event occurs, for example, we are creating a sales quotation or we are posting a free text invoice, what should happen thereafter? So I'm talking about, I may have my external system 1, I may have my third-party services with an external system configured as 02, I may have some Microsoft Azure services running over the cloud, and I would like to configure the event hubs and plenty of things. So whether these external systems are Microsoft or non-Microsoft, whether they are available to any of our Power Platform as a connector, we can get them integrated with regards to something should happen when a business event actually occurs. How does that eventually works up? What could be the potential use cases when we talk about the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations business events? So let's see some of the major areas or some of the major services or some of the major external systems we can start integrating with business events. One example, let's talk about business event and Microsoft Flow. So Microsoft Flow is an online workflow processing service from Microsoft, later on renamed as Microsoft Power Platform Power Automate. So we can always have integration between Power Automate and business events from the finance and operations side of it. Let's talk about business events and Azure Service Bus. So if you're aware about Microsoft Azure being the public cloud, a very critical component or an important service, native Azure services comes up as Azure Service Bus. We can have that integration with business events. We can have business events or any kind of workflow approvals if we would like to process based on that. And not only in finance and operations, we can consider integrating outside systems, external systems as well for workflow approvals. We can have business events and Azure Event Hub down the line in there. We can have business event and how they are operating in the financial period close to helping closing our checklists and all. And on top of that, I've got more than 350 plus third-party services which I can start integrating with my finance and operations business events directly with the help of Power Platforms out there. We will be discussing few of them today in this tightly coupled scheduled webinar. So let's get started with some of the basic discussions about the business events, what they are, where do we find them. So let's have a quick demonstration about business events. We'll be having 3 major exercises in here. Working up with the business events catalog, where do we have them, and how can we use the business events with Microsoft Flow or Power Automate, for example, and testing our configurations. Having said that, let me take you to one of my demo instance which I've already provisioned in there. So I'm in there. Let me click on start a new session. I'm going up to my finance and operations. This is a demo cloud hosted environment which we've provisioned for finance and operations. Important thing to notice, we would be seeing where do we see the business events. Number 1, how do we categorize them in the business events catalog? Number 2, how can we utilize them in Power Platform? Number 3, and testing all those configurations and customizations, whatever being made in there. So let's go to the list of modules. On finance and operations, I'm taking you to the system administration module, and right over here you will see the business events submenu under setup area, and there is something called as business events catalog. So let me click on the first one which says the business events catalog. Important thing to notice, you are seeing plenty of them. Before I even come down to the categorizations and all, I've got my business events catalog, I've got my service endpoints over here, there I have service endpoints over there just in case if you have some custom ones. What are your active events right now? You can filter and categorize them. What are the inactive events as of now? Do you have some errors from the past? So things are pretty much clean in this demo system right now. Let me click on my business events catalog, and we would be revisiting these areas a couple of times. Important thing, let's talk about categories. I've got alerts, I've got accounts receivable, I've got accounts payable, assets management, purchase orders, sales orders, workflows. I've got plenty of business events in here which are already listed down the line. What is important for me, being a developer or a technical architect, you might want to download that schema to get that integrated with the external system down the line. So for example, let's take a small example. I'm on accounts receivable and I'm talking about a free text invoice post. So whenever a free text invoice get posted into the system will trigger a business event. And what should happen thereafter, we can get that configured with our Power Platform. So being a technical audience, let's click on the download schema once. It's going to give us the schema. I've got the field names, I've got the field labels. And if you click over there, I can pretty much open that. That's my JSON format. Let me bring it up, the notepad in here. And that gives me all these details. And that's fine. That's quite technical in here. So first thing first, where do we see the available business events in the system? You go to system administration, you go under setup, you see the business events and click on business events catalog. All right. The second option says the business events parameters. What these parameters are, how many retries going to be there, what's my wait time in milliseconds, how many endpoints are allowed per one. You can use the business events, execute them inside a batch job. On top of that, you can have your event grid data over there. If you're integrating to Microsoft Azure event grid in there, you can pretty much send that data right across. That's quite okay. I can see that in my finance and operations, we've got these business events listed in here. Now, how do we collaborate these within my Microsoft Flow or Power Automate or Power Platform, Power Virtual Agent or Power Apps down the line or Power BI whatsoever? Having said that, I'm on Microsoft Power Flow in here, or we can talk about that's my Power Automate. All right. I would like to start consuming the business events from finance and operations directly over here. So what I'm gonna do, let's take a small example. When a free text invoice gets posted, I would like to do something. When I say do something, that could be a single step just for testing, or that could be a sequence of steps with parallel executions, doing lots of external system integrations. For that, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm into my data area and I can see my connections over here. So I'm going to connect to the systems where I'll be using them inside my Power Automate flow to do some sort of business automation based on business events from finance and operations. So let me quickly do one thing. I'm creating a new connection here, and I've got plenty of connectors available in here. The one which I'm really interested in is finance and operations. So let me click on that finance and operations connector here. I'm creating an API connection. So with the authenticated credentials, let me click on create. And eventually that's going to open a dialog box, which is going to ask me for the login. Let me log in with my corporate credentials over here, and I'll be connecting them through. So as a result, you will see I've got a connection listed here that's with my corporate credentials, and that goes to finance and operations application. That's fine. That's what we were just connecting in. That's absolutely fine. So I just created a data connection in my Power Platform, especially in Power Automate for any kind of business automation down the line. Let's see what I'm doing next. I'm clicking on my flows here, and I would like to create a Power Automate flow that's completely automated. So let me go with a new one. Ideally, I can go with a template. I can go an automated, an instant, scheduled business process flow, a desktop flow. Right now, for the demonstration purposes, let me go with an automated cloud flow here. And of course, you can select the templates right from there, or let me go ahead over here. I'm talking about business events, or I'm talking about Dynamics 365 finance and operations. So when I talk about finance and operations here, there is a trigger available which says when a business event occurs, and that is from finance and operations. Let me select this trigger and I'm clicking on create, or I can skip and I can manually select it from the blank designer. That's okay. Let me click on create. So ideally there is an untitled flow coming in, and it is asking us to sign in, and you will notice it automatically got signed in with the connection which we just created. All right, so let's come up with the first thing. This is a trigger. This is a trigger in Power Automate. The trigger belongs to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation, and that is talking about a business event. Now, first, it is asking me to select the instance. I may have plenty of sandboxes and instances available in here. The one which I'm currently having right now is my demo instance. So let me select my demo instance. The moment I does that, it is talking about a business category. Let me explain you what that is. I'm going back to my finance and operation, and in my business events catalog, you can see I've got this category: alerts, receivables, payables, assets management, sales order, purchase order, workflows. So that's what you will be finding in the categories. These are all the categories which are available in this instance listed underneath your business events. Let me select accounts receivable, for example. Now that's another filter. So out of accounts receivable, I will be seeing all these business events available, which I can start configuring. So let me go ahead in here, and I'm selecting the drop down in the business events. And the one which I'm really interested in right now is, for example, when a free text invoice is posted into the system, something should happen. Is it for everyone, or is it for a specific legal entity? I'm actually going for USMF for demonstration. So this is going to be the legal entity which directly comes up right from there. How many legal entities do we have available in the system itself? These are the name of the legal entities which are getting referred in here. So I specified the parameters for this particular trigger, which belongs to a business event from finance and operations. I can name it, let's say, automated flow for free text invoice from F&O. I can specify that. All right, that's going to be the name of my Power Automate flow. Now this is the trigger. And the important thing comes up, what happens thereafter when the business event actually occurs. So I can start working on adding steps in here. I can have conditions, if else, switch case, loops in here. I can have parallel processings. I can have grouped statements. I can utilize more than 350 different connectors from services, whether they are the built-in connectors in there, the standard connectors, the premium connectors, if you got some custom connectors with all these options. And I'm not going through with that because that's a separate Power Platform concept, what those connectors are, how can we connect them all. So for demonstration purposes, let's see what I'm doing in here. I would like to send a sample email to cross-verify that the business event's triggering absolutely fine, and we can start working right across through it. So I'm looking for Outlook over here, and essentially I'm looking for Office 365. So when I say Office 365, it is having plenty of options in here. I can send an email for approval for the free text invoice, or I can send email with automated options, or I can send a plain and simple email. That's okay. Let's take an example. I go down in here, and of course, what I would like to do is I would like to send an email version 2. Let me click over here. And of course, this is going to ask me with which connection, and it has selected my previously created connection. This would be the account which would be used for send that email. To whom I'm going to do that. So let's take an example. This will go to a person or a group or a list of people. So that's going to be the email address which is coming up. What is the subject going to be available in there? Of course, you can have expressions, the values coming up from the business events, calculate them, have the dynamic content, or let me just go for a new, let's call it a new free text invoice posted just now. And of course, we can have, let's say, see the details below, and we can have invoice ID, plenty of things whatsoever I would like to discuss. And let's just call it from the notification team. For demonstration purposes, I'm just utilizing it like this way. I can save it. I've just saved an action over here. If you want to do something else thereafter, you can start adding another actions. It could be action over there. It could be a parallel execution. It could be a condition check, or plenty of things down the line. Well, let's just say it that this is my Power Automate, and no need to say that. It could be from 2 steps all the way down to 200 different steps involving 100 of third-party technology service providers in here. That's okay. Let me go back. This is my Power Automate flow. Important thing, that's the name. I created that. Status currently turned on, the date created and modified, it's an automated one. The per user plan for the licensing, I've got no execution history as of now, and these are the connectors I'm actually using in here. Quite okay. Let's test it up. So I'm into my business events, and the one which I configured with the Power Platform right now, that goes when someone posts a free text invoice from accounts receivable, for example. So let's quickly test it up. I'm moving to my accounts receivable, and these are 2 independent systems which I just connected. It could be like when someone creates one over here, and I've got a subsidiary using SAP or Oracle e-business suite. I would like to transfer that information over there. Or when a payroll entry gets processed, I would like to update it into my payroll system. So could be n number of scenarios down the line. That's okay. Let me go ahead for accounts receivable, and I'm clicking on the free text invoices over here. And let me just create one, and we'll talk about that. So I'm creating a new free text invoice that's in finance and operations. Let's go in here on the customer account. That's going to be Forest Wholesales, the one which I'm using for demonstration. And let me go with the description. I'm going to call it, let's call it, for example, consulting hours. And I would like to post it in this particular account, and the quantity is going to be 46, and that's going to be 115. The daily rates, the hourly rates, I can specify all that. Of course, I can have plenty of line details, the reason codes, the foreign trade dimensions over there, a number of things. That's all finance and operations, financial concepts for accounting department, but that's okay. Let me just save it. I created a free text invoice. Do I receive something? Not really. I check that up and nothing's happening. That's absolutely good to go. And just to show you, if I open up my Gmail, I've not received any email as of now because obviously there is no execution in here. Because as per my Power Automate automation flow, that's going to trigger when a business event actually occurs in finance and operation. And the business event will occur only if I'm going to post this free text invoice. So let me click on post just to show you a small demonstration. That's okay, I'm doing all that. I'm not actually printing it and I'm not running it in a background job, so I'm not doing a batch processing here. That's okay. Let me click OK over here and eventually it will start the posting process for this free text invoice, and that's telling me the operation got completed. The free text invoice has been posted. Now, the moment it does, a event is going to occur. I'm going to show you something. You can see that I've already received an email. This is as real time, a near real time it can be with the subject and the details I was specifying. We'll come back over the execution. If you click on refresh, you will see it got succeeded. That took 35 milliseconds to process everything. But let's go back to our finance and operations, and I'm moving to my system administration here and going to my business events catalog. So the one business event which we integrated within Power Platform, that was our when a customer free text invoices actually got posted. You can talk about a customer payment journal, a write-off over there, the assets management over there, so anything. Let's take an example of the endpoints. I currently have nothing's available, but there is one which I just configured. It was previously empty, but you can see that I got one connection, and that connection is with Microsoft Power Automate, Microsoft Flow, and that was actually there for accounts receivable for this particular event. I can see how many endpoints are there, and we can see all those details coming up right across in there. What are my active events? And there is only one. Previously it was empty. The one is for free text invoice posting for this particular legal entity, and this is the endpoint the business event is currently using. Do you have any inactive events or you want to deactivate that? You can do it directly from here as well. Do you have some errors during executions in the past? You'll see all these details listing up in here. So that was about my, if I was revisiting the finance and operations business events area. On top of that, let me go to my Power Automate. And now you'll see that I've got one execution here. All right. What I'm going to do next, let me click on that execution details and show you the details, what actually happened. So when a business event occurs, let's understand the JSON values. This was the instance we specified. This was the category. This was the actual business event, and it was only for this particular legal entity. I can see the raw output over here as well if I want to. I can download that as well, but let me close it right now. And let's understand that. I've got the JSON, and that's ideally for the technical audience with all these details. Technically, the schema we were talking about for that particular event. And if you would like to revisit that, that was our business event. Let's go to our customer free text invoice, and you download the schema and you're eventually gonna see the same thing over there. That's fine. That was my business event trigger. What happens is I'm sending an email, and you can see the output of JSON values, all these things over there. You can download it and you can see it in your JSON format. How exactly does it really work? So that was one very small example when we are integrating our business events with Microsoft Flow. Another example could be we are a bit of a developers in here and we are using Azure services, and one of the great things for Azure automation we use is Azure Logic Apps. So what happens if I want to go with a logic apps and then capturing the business events directly from finance and operations? Well, eventually it's quite the same. You go to the logic apps in here. Let's say I'm going to add one, and I want to go based on the consumption plan. And no need to say that that's a separate thing we are talking about. It's in Azure right now. Let me just utilize my resource group, and I would like to call it GTLFO business events demo 01, whatever I would like to name it. I'd like to store this logic apps in East US, and let me just review and create. And I'm actually creating this logic app in here. That's fine. The moment we get this created, we'll be shifting to the logic apps designer once again. And this would be, I would say, 95% same as we did with Power Automate. Power Automate is for absolutely zero lines of code or without any coding exposures. And with logic apps, you can start writing codes in there. So that's okay. Let me go to the resource. And that's going to take me to the logic apps designer. And here, let's say I want to go with a blank logic app. Once again, I can search for the connector, and I'm looking for finance and operations, the recent one. And I've got some triggers in here. I've got some actions in here. So when I click on the trigger, when a business event occurs, or if you would like to utilize some of the actions, you can create a record, delete a record, execute an action, get a record in there, get the entities, update a record. You can do all that. So let's say if when a business event actually occurs, I'm selecting that. And the moment you do it, you're going to have your connection in here. So of course you'll be creating that connection. I'm currently connected with this one. Let's see the available instances. I should be seeing my demo instance, and same thing. This time I'm talking about the categories, and I'm actually looking for assets management. All right. And one of the event in my assets management, which I can configure for any kind of automation, is when a maintenance work order is scheduled. And of course I can have steps, what to do next. What calculation should it do, and we can configure this logic app and start executing right across. Important thing, since it's not Power Automate, people can really go into the code view and can see the JSON it's generating in the background to get this done. So we can pretty much utilize our JSON templates all across. Another example at the same, we can have our Azure Event Grid over here. We can have Azure Event Hub over here, Azure App Services in there, and 350 plus different connectors which can start consuming the business events rightly associated to that, and then start configuring and utilizing them to the external systems. So once again, to revisit the quick demonstration which we were doing, after that we know where can we find the business events in finance and operations. And that's a separate thing. Can we create custom business events in finance and operations? Absolutely yes. We discussed that in MB500, a full-fledged developer training for finance and operations. Can we integrate them to external systems? Yes, we just did it. This example was with the Power Platform, especially with Microsoft Flow. We can do it with Azure. We can do it with the Power Apps. We can do it with Power Virtual Agent, Power BI. We can do it with Azure App Services. We can do it with Azure Service Bus. We can do it with 350 different connectors down the line. And then we finally tested that with the Power Platform and business events integration, we just had an end-to-end demonstration, which we eventually tested that up. So that was this small demonstration talking about the business events. I'll frequently jump up to the questions in here. Before we do that, that was one quick thing we had today's webinar in here. Now, of course, we've got plenty of future events scheduled in here. And of course, you're registered into the marketing list. You'll keep on getting the upcoming information from there. Apart from that, when we talk about your learning exposures in here, so based on today's webinar or based on any of your upcoming learning requirements, you can always refer us to our sites in there. And there are a couple of resources which you would like, and there are some which are at absolute zero cost. And I'm going to show you and share you all that information right across in there. Having said that, let me just go in here. And when you take a look on the courses available for us, you can pretty much filter down with any of those technologies, and whatever you choose it up, whatever you select, you simply go to the details of the course and you can see what the course actually delivering you with the upcoming schedules. You can directly register it from there. That's one thing goes for the instructor-led training. Another one which you might be interested in is the self-paced learning. So I've got plenty of courses. We've got plenty of courses published over the site, and just in case if you would like to learn by yourself at your own schedule using high definition videos. You can directly go with what the course actually contains. For example, the MB500, 19.5 hours of video, what it's providing you, some sample videos you might want to watch, and you can directly have subscribe it from here. Eventually, what you're gonna get when you quickly enroll with that, you get an automated email to log into yourself with the student portal, and it's only for the registered customers or students in there. The moment you enter your email address and you get to the code, you receive an OTP, and then you are jumping into your self-paced learning library. And how eventually these self-paced courses are, for example, let's say the MB500 for finance and operations, you access the course, and let me just go in there since my session got canceled in here. Let me quickly show you. The moment I'm trying to log in, it is sending me the code, the OTP over the email, and let me show you the entire process, how eventually that actually works up. So let me copy my code in here, and I'm going to paste it up. And when you access the content, let's say the MB500 for example, every course, every self-paced learning course is divided into sections. You've got the high definition recorded videos for every module and lesson down the line in here, which you're currently seeing. You've got the hands-on labs, the step-by-step lab guides, what needs to be done for your practice. You've got some quizzes in here. If you click on these quizzes, these are like the exam preps, the testing questions, which will help you preparing your certifications, and not one, but multiple series what you'll be getting, and you can have the practice labs available from there as well. So that was a couple of things I was talking about. So at any given point of time, if you're interested in any of those on-prem or instructor-led courses, you can enroll yourself from here. If you're talking about the self-paced courses in here, I'll be sharing you that information over your email as well. You can subscribe it directly from the site, or you have free recorded events available to everybody. So all these webinars what we delivered in the past are available on demand. You can simply watch them directly from here without even registering of various technologies. So that was one quick thing what we delivered as part of that, talking about Dynamics 365 business events along with the integration of that to Power Platform. Now, I've just opened the chat channel to the entire session in here. Let's see, guys, if you've got some questions you'd like to answer, and some questions which I would like to answer during the session. So let's take a look. We've got a few minutes in here, and let's have your question answers in there. Feel free to post your questions on the chat window on the Zoom meeting, and I'll be happy to answer all of those. All right, we got a question in here, and the question talks about can we utilize the free text invoice capabilities and integrate that to the Salesforce? The answer is absolutely yes, because the Power Platform already contains the Salesforce connector. We just need to configure it and start utilizing it all together. I've got another question in here. How can we talk about the free text invoice values to the email? You just need to go to the dynamic parameters and utilize those values from the dynamic parameters, and then add them to the email body wherever you'd like to have it up. Another question coming up, do we have the business events unidirectional like F&O to third parties? Can it come back to third party to finance and operations as well? So let's talk about that one. The finance and operation connector currently have only one trigger and is having multiple actions. So if you would like to trigger something from finance and operations to there, the only way is business events. But if you have some third-party applications triggering something and you would like to update that information or create that information to finance and operations, yes, you can go with the F&O actions and have the create a record or delete record or update record action from there. I've got another question. Can we integrate SAP with business events? Absolutely yes. You've got the SAP Business One. That connector is already available in Power Platform, and we can start utilizing them. I've got another question here. from where you can access the previous webinars. Let me share it over the chat to everybody. You guys can feel free to access it from there. You can access it at any given point of time right across. All right, so I've got another question here. Is there any cost associated to the self-paced learning courses if you're enrolling from the site directly? Yes, every self-paced learning course is having a cost associated. You'd like to enroll it, you can directly go it right from there. Another question kicking in, what is the main difference between Flow and Logic App? Well, let's talk about it. Flow can be as real time as you want it to be. When it talks about Logic Apps always goes with the first parameters, that how frequently you want to keep on checking that event. Is it 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? That's configurable. Number two, flows are mainly for the known developers, the zero code writers, whereas Logic Apps can involve code writings, Azure Function Apps integrations, or JSON knowledge is required, XML serialization may be required in there. On top of it, Flow is pretty much a hosting I would say an automated workflow processing service from Microsoft with plenty of connectors, and not all of those connectors are currently available to Logic Apps, to Azure Logic Apps in there. So there could be plenty of differences right across in here. Right, so I got another question in here. What if the finance and operation business events are deregistered somehow? Can we activate them once again? Yes, you can go to finance and operations business events catalog. Just click on the event and reactivate, or you can revalidate your connection to the Power Platform and it'll all be good. It's a two-way synchronization as far as the event activation is concerned. Another question comes up, how do we create custom business events for our custom D365 functionality? For that, we discuss that in much detail in MB500, the developers training, and there you also talk about how can you start developing the custom business events and then integrate them to Power Platform or any third-party services down there. Right, so let's see if we've got some other questions appearing in here. All right, you say the form setup form project management module is not available, so not able to send project invoice as email. To answer that question, yes, project management is currently not listed in the event catalogs, but being your D365 F&O developer can always create custom business events pointing to your project management module, the fund accounting, the timesheets management, the project invoices, and have them listed into the business catalog and then start configuring or integrating them into the Power Platform. Alrighty, perfect. So this was one of the webinar which I was delivering in here, guys. Thank you very much for being with me into the session. It was really nice having you in the call. See you next time. Till then, keep following us on the social media channels and keep tuning. Bye-bye.